to Veterans on the Front Porch. And today we have a special guest, a man whose name is quite synonymous with Wolfeboro, and Mr. Allan Bailey. And welcome to Veterans on the Front Porch.
Thank you very much.
Now, when did you join the Army?
I didn't join.
Oh.
I was a graduate of college in 1967, and as soon as I got out of college, by golly, I got a letter from the president that said greetings.
Aha.
And so I was drafted. That would end in early 1968.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Went through basic and AIT in this country, and then I went to Vietnam in 69.
Wow.
Or 68, I should say, the latter part of 68.
Now, you were living in Wolfeboro at the time?
Yes, yep, I was. Our business was here. The Lake Motel and the Wolf and Bailey's Restaurant were here, and so that was all part of my family.
I was going to ask you about that, because I remember as a kid, we would go to the movies in the town hall.
Right.
And then we go to the 7 o'clock show and come up to Bailey's
There you go.
for
Well,
ice
thank
cream.
you. Thank you for supporting us. I appreciate it.
And I remember you had Dockside as well.
We had Dockside for about 20 years, 25 years, I think, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was synonymous with Wolfeboro.
Well, it was. And, you know, the irony is that my dad started the Bailey's Restaurant in 1938.
Wow.
He built a motel in 1956, but from 1938 and through till today, the name Bailey's is still hanging out there with Bailey's Bubble.
Yeah.
So we've been in business all that length of time in this community.
I'm glad the people that have the restaurant now have not changed the inside.
Good, me too.
You know.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. A lot of memories in there.
Well, you see little plaques on the booths of people who were there for years and years and years. Yeah.
But to me, it's always Bailey's. They could change the name
That's true.
1,000 times, but that's, you know.
Well, to me it is also.
Yeah.
Go figure, you know.
I know. So you went to, what was it, AIG school?
AIT, Advanced
AIT.
Infantry Training.
Oh.
See, the government, they asked me if I have just a minute to tell you this. When I went to basic training, because I was a college graduate, they asked me to come in and sit with this lovely WAC sergeant, and a lovely girl, beautiful lady. And she had some questions for me, and one of them was, would I like to go to OCS, Officers Candidate School? And I said, well, I probably would, but that entails another year, doesn't it? And she said, yes, it does. And I said, well, I can't give you another year. I really can't, because I have businesses back in my community. It's going to be a hardship to go for 2 years. So she said, then you don't want to do it. I said, no, I don't. I'm sorry, but I don't. And she abruptly got up and left.
Wow.
So that kind of dealt the death knell for me, because as we left basic training, I had my orders to go to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Sure. Leesville.
In Leesville. And if you've ever been there, don't go there. Don't. Because I spent 5 months at Fort Polk, 2 months as a trainee, and then 3 months as a colonel's aide and driver before I went to Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
And boy, Leesville was, I've been to a lot of places that are just nasty, and Leesville is the poster child for nasty. So anyhow, that's what happened, and I got to Vietnam in November of 1968. Came home in November of 1969. Yep.
Well, I'm glad you got out okay.
Me too. I'll tell you a quick story if I can.
Be my guest.
As a matter of fact, just before we went on the air or videoed this, I was on the phone with a fellow that I was in Vietnam with. And almost simultaneously, we said to each other, happy anniversary. Because it's 50 years since we departed.
Yep.
And parted company, but not friendship. And so that's a good thing. We took care of each other, let's put it that way.
That's good.
We did. We
That's
had to.
good.
You had to do that.
So you were in country.
Oh, I was right in country. I was with the 25th Division.
Wow.
Up in Cu Chi, Vietnam. And I went over as 11 Bravo, which is infantry.
Yeah.
But again, that college education paid off a bit, because they not only needed the infantry, of course, but they also needed personnel specialists. So they changed my MOS from 11 Bravo to 74H, which I thought was wonderful, because the higher up the ladder you go with the numbers, the better the job.
Yes.
But that was only a secondary MOS, the 74H. So I was primarily in infantry. I spent some time in a helicopter here and there.
Uh-huh.
But I also did personnel work. And I gave the orientation for every E7 and below, brand new grunts coming in
Sure.
to the 25th Division, for the 25th Division. And I gave that orientation every night, every single night.
Wow.
Plane load would come in, and they sit there and they fill out all kinds of forms. And the one form that scared me a little bit when I was there was the one form that said notification of next of kin.
Yep.
Now that puts it right in perspective, right there. And I have kids. Vietnam was mostly infantry. Was kids. They were kids
Absolutely.
that actually did the work. And a lot of them, a couple of them, I remember started to cry,
Yeah.
literally. And I said, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. You're going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Just put your mom and dad or whoever is next to you. That's all they want to know. That's all. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. As I said to myself, God bless you, and I hope you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I had the same thing when I was on an aircraft carrier in Virginia.
Mhm.
I didn't have to worry about things like that because we didn't go.
Sure.
But then I was in communications and intelligence, and they transferred me to the Ranger in the Tonkin Gulf.
Well,
And one of the forms we got was that one.
notification. You didn't step foot in country though, did you?
No, I was very
Beautiful.
fortunate, but I looked at that and I'm going, this is not the form you want to fill out. It's like, get your affairs in order.
Yes.
Oh.
And they had to get their affairs in order because that was a record that went into the files while they were in Vietnam.
Mhm.
When they went home from Vietnam, all of that went back with them.
Yep.
But it was a scary, 68 to 69 was when the greatest buildup was going on.
Yep.
It was when in this United States, most of the turmoil was happening
Yep.
between blacks and whites. And so, you had two battles to fight over there, two enemies.
Yep.
Sorry to say, you had the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, but you also had the black-white situation.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of non-battle deaths in Vietnam
I'll bet, yeah.
because you get into a firefight, and I know this was happening, what did happen, get into a firefight and no one could tell if you're in the weeds whether you're shooting at the enemy or the guy that just made you mad the last,
Yeah.
2 days ago.
I know.
And it was scary. It was really scary.
So you were until 69,
Mhm.
and you got to come back to Wolfeboro,
I did.
and Bailey's again.
Bailey's again. I went into the motel and started running that, and it was then I bought it for my mom, but I purchased it to get her into a very comfortable retirement. But I had one of the best businesses in the town of Wolfeboro.
Oh,
It was, and I say that only because I made friends with every single person that came through that door. And some I was sold in 2002. It was the same time the restaurant was sold. But I'm still getting postcards from people who were customers of mine back then.
wow, that's great.
And this is 2018 or 18, yes. And you just feel good about it.
Now, you served for 2 years,
Mhm.
but you haven't given up your service. You're also involved with the Wright Museum.
I am. I'm a docent at the Wright Museum. What a great entity that is for the town of Wolfeboro, I'll
Oh.
tell you. And I'll look you right square in the eye, folks, and tell you that if you haven't been to the Wright, when they open next May, make sure you go and see what's going on there because it's a treat. It's a gift given to us by David Wright
Yeah.
and a lot of his friends. A ton of people volunteered to put that place together.
I am amazed at how they collected all the things they collected.
Oh, and you only see a portion of what they've collected. The archives are loaded with stuff that they can't put out yet because they
Wow.
haven't got room for it. And which is kind of sad, but we have a military gallery there that has a tank
Yep.
and a small tank, a little Stewart tank, and whatever. But there are two tanks sitting up in the backyard in those houses back up there in back. I'll stop stumbling over this in just a second. In the back of the buildings that house a lot of other equipment that we can't show because we haven't got the room to show it.
Wow.
I say we, the Wright Museum.
Right, yeah.
But you'll still get a good feel of not only the military aspect of it, but the home front aspect of it,
Absolutely.
which was just as important as was the military.
When I go in there and I go in through the front door, and you start walking up to where the Alice is,
Mhm.
and you'll have that restaurant, the old
Right.
diner thing.
Yep.
And I almost feel like saying hello to the people because
There you
they're
go.
so real looking.
We have a again, my mind fails me, but a little shop that served ice cream and sodas and all that
Right.
kind of set up there.
Yeah.
And it's telling about it doesn't do it justice. You really have to see it, don't you?
You do.
To make it work, yeah.
My lifelong friend who passed away a while back, Dennis Bean,
Hmm.
when
He was my lifelong friend also.
he said, "You're in veteran." He said, "You've got to come with me to the Wright Museum." And I said, "Well, where is it?" He said, "Remember where the diamond factory used to be?" I said,
Right.
"Yeah, the
Diamond
Max
National,
factory."
sure.
He said, "Well, that's where it is." So he did. He took me through.
Good.
And
Good.
I had lost a lot of my uniforms through flooding where I was
Mhm.
living. And when I got into the Navy section, I said, wow, it's just like going back home, seeing all of that. And I've had people during the Festival of Trees say, well, this is all there is to the museum. I said, oh, no. No, when it opens in May, you have to come back.
You do. There's so many segments of it.
Oh.
The programs that go on upstairs every Tuesday night, and again, they're broadcast or shown on the Granite State News
Right.
or in the Granite State News. But make a point. This is not a make a point of trying to get to the museum if you haven't been before, or if you've been, come on back again, because the exhibits change all the time.
Right.
They do.
Now, you do something other than just the Wright Museum. You interview World War II vets.
I do. What a pleasure. It's we don't have many left, obviously.
No.
Every October, September, I'm sorry, we invite probably 6 to 8 World War II veterans over to the museum to just come and go around with us to, kind of a remembrance type of thing on their part, and have a lunch with us. But we don't do too much interviewing them personally.
Right.
So I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we got a camera crew together and we went over to Tilton, to the Veterans Home, and sat a couple of them down and got their stories. So we do have their stories, and they're wonderful stories. And also went up to Sugar Hill here in Wolfeboro, and there were 7 of the World War II vets up there, and we interviewed them, and a lady in both counts, and it was great. I mean, they call it the greatest generation, and it's certainly named aptly because they were part of the greatest generation. There's no doubt about it. If it hadn't happened the way we handle ourselves in World War II, it would have been a different story. But
Yeah.
very proud to be a part of the United States of America, that's for sure.
I was your cameraman once up at, I think it was Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill, yes.
And I was amazed that not one of them stumbled over what they weren't afraid to talk.
Mm-mm.
And the stories were really interesting.
They are interesting. They are interesting. I'm stumbling more than they did, to be honest with you.
Well, I said, this man gets these other veterans to talk. It's time to have you on to talk
Well,
about
thank
your
you.
story.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well,
No, my story, pretty much as far as the military goes, was Vietnam.
yeah.
And a couple of things about Vietnam. May I just give you a couple of
Sure.
things that I remember? The sadness of Vietnam for me, and there were firefights and the killings going on and all that, but the sadness was what was happening to women and children. And when a napalm bomb is dropped, and that gel goes like this, it just covers everybody. It's not selective. And to see that, and I did from the air very closely, and it's a terrible thing. And it's bothered me ever since I came home. And because of that, I was told to go down and see a doctor in Manchester about a year ago, and he sent me to a psychiatrist, which I thought was pretty good because I really needed one.
Yeah.
But it was determined that I have PTSD.
Really?
Yeah. Again, most everybody over there probably does. And what they saw and how they had to react to what they saw, because that's not our way of life by any stretch of the
No.
imagination.
Well, as a young man, you're not expected to see the things and hear the things
No.
that you go through.
And to be honest with you, I did serve my country, and that's exactly what I did, because I thought the war in Vietnam was a terrible, terrible thing. It was a black eye on the face of the United States of America.
Yes.
But I did what I was told to do, as did many others. You could have asked any GI, let's say, any grunt, we call them, just coming in, and they were mostly kids, as I mentioned. You could have asked them, why are you here? Why are you here? And the answer would be because the government said I had to be.
Yeah.
They didn't say because we were trying to stop the spread of communism or whatever. They had no idea what they were dying for, on the most part, and that was sad also. Sad.
I know when I got transferred to the Ranger, my question was, why do I have to go there?
Hmm.
You know, I mean, don't they have people there that, well, yeah, they did. And I was in a situation where I was away from the general population of the ship. I was in a special area.
Mhm.
And, but yeah, the questions and wondering why. And then when I got transferred back to the Randolph, I was never so happy in my life to serve out my term. But to be drafted, that had to be a blow.
It was. I was newly married, and there was no alternative. I
Right.
guess there was. You could ask people that had enough money. They could buy their way out and have doctors sign this, that, or the other thing. Anyhow, but I didn't have the money, nor did I feel it was honest to do that, so I
Right.
didn't. Another quick question, story, if I may.
Right.
To give you an idea of how tough it was to be over there, to fight, put your life on the line for this country when the demonstrations were going on here, and we could see what was happening on television. The other thing that was a real kick was that I was over there for a year. I hadn't seen the United States for a year, so I came back. I was discharged from the Army. I came out of Oakland Army Terminal with my dress greens on because I had to wear them home. With all my braids and all that good stuff. I could take it off once I got home and never put it out again, but I had to wear it home.
Really?
So I'm standing in San Francisco Airport about 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting for my flight, and this group of people were coming toward me, and one young lady kind of walked out of the group and over toward me, and she said to me, "Are you just coming back from Vietnam?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." What do you think she did?
I'd hate to ask.
Well, it's not nice. She spit at me and called me a baby killer and walked away. So welcome to home, welcome home. But I soon found out that was not the people that I hung around with anyhow.
Right.
Didn't feel that way.
Yeah, when two or three of us landed in San Diego, we got to San Diego, and we got out of the plane, we were told, where you were told to wear your uniform, we were told not to. We were told, get into the men's room, change into civilian clothes. Don't let them know you're military.
Well, those clothes, those greens came off when I got home. I got to show you.
And you know,
Never put them on again, ever.
it's sad, but because for the longest time, like, I never put a veteran's plate on my car. I never wore anything. And it wasn't until lately where I feel, hey, you know, people are actually saying, thank you for your service.
Well, they do, and they know I was in Vietnam, and they said, thank you for your service to me, too. And it's kind of hard for me to accept, but I do accept it because I guess I put my time in, and hearing that was quite honest and accepted. So I do thank them for saying it. I just wish they hadn't said it.
Right.
I wish I were a World War II veteran, or a Korean veteran, but not a Vietnam veteran.
I agree, yeah. And the greatest words you can hear are welcome home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was my wife and I were at a fair, and the band was starting to play, and the fellow stood up and he said, I want all veterans to stand up. And I was reluctant, and she said, well, go ahead. And he sang that Lee Greenwood song.
Yes, yeah.
And at the end, he just said, welcome home.
Yeah.
And we could see, looking around, there were tears in guys' eyes, because we never heard that before.
Well, today, I have a little Vietnam flag, poster on the back of my window of my truck.
Uh-huh.
And that's just to indicate to other Vietnam veterans that I was one, and I understand what they went through, and understand that whatever they were. And any time I see either a guy with a hat on or somebody climbing into a car that had a flag on it, I stop them, I put my hand out and say, welcome home, brother.
Yep.
Welcome home, because we didn't get any of that. That's
No,
for
we
sure.
didn't. We
No,
came home,
not at all.
as someone said, we came home individually, not as a group.
Yes, like it's
yeah.
happening today. I think it's wonderful what's going on today.
Oh, I do too.
I'm a little jealous,
Yeah.
but I think it's great that these fellows are getting, and ladies, are getting thanked for their involvement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got the veterans plate, and I put the
Mhm.
Vietnam frame on it. And it's nice when people walk up, and I do it like
Sure.
you. I'll walk up and shake their hand and welcome them home.
Yeah.
You know, it's needed.
It really is. A lot of these fellas, you'd be surprised. They're older. I mean, we're all getting older, you know.
Yeah.
We're not kids anymore. But you're surprised the look on their faces when you walk up and you say, welcome home, brother. And they excuse
Yeah.
me for just a second. And they turn around and say, hey, welcome home to you too.
Right. Yeah.
It's just nice for both
It
of us
is
to hear.
nice. Well, I found it, and I'm sure you did too. I mean, you come from a war area, you come back home, and it's like a completely different situation.
Oh, yeah.
You've got all this going through your mind, and yet here are people shopping and playing music, and like nothing else is going on.
Right.
And you're saying, people, don't you realize what's going on in the world?
No. I don't think anybody that didn't go over there, even with a news broadcast, could really realize and understand how, for 365 days, and I was there for 363, how morning, noon, and night, there was a threat of you getting killed.
Yeah.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
And that's a toughie. And I'll tell you about the friend that I talked to on the phone just recently. We used to take care of each other, and I mean that, by the fact that if there was a threat that our unit was going to get overrun or something, either Nick or I would be awake for all night long. We take turns,
Yeah.
even though we weren't on guard duty or anything else, because we wanted to make sure that we were up and ready to go if they didn't, attack.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you needed to have someone at your back and be at someone else's back.
sure. Like they say, watch your six. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it home well yourself. Any stories you want to tell us?
I don't know. There are some things we don't talk about,
Yes,
obviously.
indeed,
that,
yes.
But I'm sure. Where did you have your R&R?
I had two.
You had two of them.
Don't tell anybody I did that, but I had two. I had one R&R. I met my wife Julie in Hong Kong.
Oh,
I'm sorry, in Hawaii,
Okay.
and we had a great week together. And it doesn't make any difference when you go to Hawaii, but the weather was great and all that. And then I had an option to take another week in Hong Kong, and that was incredibly interesting. That was it just, first of all, you get this is kind of hard to believe, but when you go on R&L like that, the thing you're looking forward to the most is a nice bed, a nice hot shower, and a good meal, because that was few and far between in Vietnam. But anyhow, it was. I'm sure others would say the same thing if they were to ask, what do you remember and looking forward to?
Yeah, we used to go to Yokosuka, Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I always mispronounced that. That was Yokosuka, and I said, no, it's Yokosuka, and I would say, okay, Yokosuka, and someone would say, no, it's Yokosuka. And
Right.
I said, but you're right. You look for that bed, that meal,
Right.
and because it's important, to.
God bless the cooks in Vietnam, the line cooks
Oh,
in the base camps. They didn't want to be there any more than I did, but I can't imagine what the food was like when they got it before they cooked it.
oh, I know.
But boy, if you watch MASH, you'll get a good idea of what's going on, because you actually had to sniff it to try to figure out what it was, and if you wanted to put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
And they were just doing their job, but boy, they were making a mockery out of cooking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I had one fellow on that was a cook, and it was amazing what they would have to do
Mhm.
to get it ready to be edible.
Sure.
But yeah, oh, but you were right about the meal. I remember the first thing I ordered was a cheeseburger.
There you go.
I hadn't had a cheeseburger in so long.
Well, they tried to make cheeseburgers in Vietnam.
Yeah,
Never mind. I can't. I get sick to my stomach just thinking about
I
it.
know.
But you're right. Just something as simple as a cheeseburger
Yeah.
and French fries. My God, it was great.
Oh, it was.
It was. I came back from Vietnam, went over to Vietnam at 176 pounds. I came back from Vietnam at 148 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to run around a shower to get wet. That's how skinny I was. But I put that weight back on very quickly. That's for sure.
I know when I came home, my mother took a big, I don't want to say paper clip, but safety pin,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't keep my pants,
Pants
up.
Being home for that Christmas, coming back in November of '69 and having the Christmas of '69 was magnificent.
Now, I know when I was in, around the holidays, my mind would revert back to when I was a kid, those Christmases
Mhm.
with the whole family. And I don't know why, but it did every time. I remember those more than other times.
And the military tried its darndest while I was in Vietnam for that '68 Christmas. Tried its darndest to make us feel like, Christmas. That was one meal that was decent.
Mm.
We had a turkey dinner on Christmas Day that you could actually tell it was a turkey dinner.
Right, yeah.
One other story, if I may.
Go right ahead.
One thing you learn in the Army, and they'll tell you right up front, is never volunteer for anything. I guess that's a whole military, but don't volunteer for nothing. Well, I was new in country in November of '68, and they needed volunteers. So they came and they asked the guys in the office there, we need a volunteer. Everybody put their hands in their pocket. Good old Bailey. Sure, why not? You want me as a target out there or something? They said, no, Alan, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be carrying and taking care of Ann Margaret when she comes over with the Bob Hope show. Well, the other guys say, what's this? And,
wow.
and they flew. Bob Hope came in to the 25th base camp, and I met Miss Margaret, and I carried her bags, and I all but slept outside of her hooch at night,
Yep.
But other than that, she knew I was right outside to fulfill any wish or whim that she had if she needed something.
Yeah.
And what a very lovely lady she was. The whole group that came over with Bob Hope were wonderful.
Oh, yeah. We had one of his shows just before he was heading back.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Ranger, and we had a short program, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. I mean, the USO, I can't praise them enough. They brought home to a place that just didn't have
Mhm.
home. Yeah.
We didn't see much of the USO. It was a dangerous area.
Oh.
And Bob, even when the Bob Hope was there, our outer perimeter was attacked, and there were helicopters, UH-1s
Mhm.
and Cobras flying around the base camp constantly, and that kept Charlie, as we called him,
Right.
away. But Bob was a little shaky, and we told Bob it was okay. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
I'll take the bullet for you, Bob. No problem. But it was great to see them.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for your service, and I am very impressed with what you're doing with the Wright Museum, especially with those World War II vets.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's tremendous.
Well, it's an accomplishment I can make. It's something that I can do. I don't do much except give people tours and welcome them at the museum
Right.
as a docent. But the people who work there and put these programs together and all that, they're magnificent. And the volunteers, I mean, what they do in that place is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they're phenomenal. That's all I can say. Wonderful group of people.
Well,
But I'm happy to be part of it. That's for sure.
I could tell, and
Yeah.
I can, and it's great the way you can get the World War II vets to talk, to
Yeah.
tell their stories
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you came on the show and told us your story.
Well, I appreciate it. I didn't mean to ramble on, but it's something I can talk about to this day without any problem, except
Right.
certain parts of it
Oh.
are tough.
Right.
But
We
it's
try
happy
to-
to share it, that's all.
We try to remember just the good things.
Yes. What
Don't
were
put
they?
the other stuff behind us.
What
Oh,
were they?
I'm sorry you have the PTSD, though.
Well, it happens. I
Yeah.
mean, and I know it's there, and I wasn't sure what it was, but I have dreams you wouldn't believe.
Oh,
But it's been that way ever since I came back. So it's something that I wish had not happened.
yeah.
It did, I live with it, and that's the name of that tune. That's it.
You have to, yeah. Well, welcome home,
Sir,
brother.
thank you. Welcome home to you too, brother.
And thank you for being on the program.
It's my pleasure to be here, and happy holiday to you.
And happy holiday
Have a great
to you.
one. Have a great one.
You too.
Okay,
And
thanks.
again, if you're in town or at the right museum and you see Brother Bailey, say hello and be sure and welcome him home.
I'll be back there next May, and when it opens, and do come by and see us. Whether I'm there or not, come by and see the museum if you haven't, because it's something else.
It is. It's worth the trip.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thanks, partner.
Okay.
Take care.
You too. And that'll do it for this program of Veterans on the Front Porch. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to doing it again soon.